Jenna here, and I can't help but wonder what my life would be like now if my mom hadn't fallen ill. Everything changed when she died when I was 6 years old. We used to live in a house where she would laugh all the time, and pictures of our happy family would adorn every wall. Dad took it very hard. He hardly spoke for months, doing little more than going to work and returning home. To avoid disturbing him, I did my best to remain silent. At the time, I didn't really grasp the concept of death. I couldn't stop wondering when Mom would return from heaven. My dad would envelop me in an embrace and be silent. After he ran across Sandra at a company event, I saw my dad's smile brighten as she began dropping by for dinner. I suppose that's why I remained silent when, one by one, pictures of Mom began to vanish from the walls to be replaced with ones featuring Sandra. One night, Dad remarked, "Jenna, Sandra, and I have something to tell you." I was so anxious that I fiddled with the bottom of my dress when they placed me down in our living room. "My wife, Sandra, and I are tying the knot. She will become your new mother and reside with us. Everything will be wonderful. You'll see." Still, it lacked greatness. Sandra wasted little time in instituting change after their return from their honeymoon. In addition to painting the walls and rearranging the furniture, she also instituted what she dubbed house rules. She would mention, "Jenna, your room is a mess again," each morning. She should keep her room neat and organized. Additionally, I am experiencing a headache, so I ask that you play quietly. I was obligated to assist with household tasks from the age of 6 onwards. Dad would simply tell me to listen to Sandra, "Honey," whenever I would vent to him. "She is well versed in your best interests." Their argument was audible to me in their bedroom on a particular day. In an effort to decipher the words, I leaned my ear to the door. "The reason she isn't adjusting well," John, Sandra was explaining, "it could work out better if she moved in with your mom. I miss having family around," she says time and time again. "Just know," Dad spoke softly, "I gave Sarah my word. Before she even started, Jenna will be taken care of, I promised. And then there's the education fund for Jenna that she left behind. I promised that it would be used for her schooling." Unbeknownst to me at the time, things were going to get considerably more challenging. Everything changed once again when Sandra became pregnant a year later. Dad was ecstatic, and Sandra couldn't stop gushing about having her own child. I was someone else's child, not her own, and those words hurt more than any rule or chore she had ever given me because of that. She never truly belonged to it. My age was 8 years old when Emma was born. Standing in the hospital hallway with Dad, I looked out the window of my sister's nursery and remembered how new she was. With her little pink blanket enveloping her, her father couldn't help but smile. "You're officially a big sister now, Jenna," he exclaimed with a smile. "Won't you lend a hand with Emma's care?" I gladly nodded, but I didn't get its true significance. But I learned the hard way. It didn't take long for Sandra to make me her personal assistant after they got Emma home. "Send new diapers my way, Jenna." "Clean these bottles, Jenna." "Hey, Jenna, could you please hold Emma while I take a call?" The requests were constant. I was able to change diapers, make baby formula, and make basic baby meals by the time I was 9 years old. Emma needed me to mash bananas and mix rice cereal while her peers played outdoors after school. When Sarah's birthday party was approaching, I distinctly remember begging on a Saturday to help pay for it. "You must be present for Emma," Sandra stated angrily. "She's quite sensitive right now because she's teething. Plus, someone should really go ahead and tidy up the playroom after her." My duties expanded in tandem with Emma's development. As she learned to walk, I had to keep a close eye on her to make sure she didn't trip or choke on anything she shouldn't have. At the same time, Emma received an abundance of presents and attention. With each tantrum, a fresh toy or treat was doled out. Emma discovered at the age of 4 that she could provoke me whenever she pleased, and she certainly made good use of that power. On one occasion, she purposefully spilt her juice all over her brand new clothing before frantically running to Sandra in tears. I was pushed by Jenna. She sobbed. That weekend, I stayed indoors and did nothing. She also blamed me the time I destroyed her pricey musical toy. She asserted that Jenna was the one whose playtime caused it to break. Being in the middle of my homework at the time was irrelevant. To pay for the replacement, I had to take a month off of my stipend. The most horrible thing was when she used scissors to rip her own party dress and then stashed the blades in my bag. During one of Sandra's room inspections, she discovered them. What gives you the right to feel envious? I got a roar out of Sandra. The price of that dress was, do you know? Yet I failed to. I did my best to clarify. Go to your room, Dad said, cutting you off. Later, we will talk about your penalty. Standing in the doorway, Emma grinned at me as I passed by. I was always the one who was accused, but she had figured out early on that she could get away with anything. My sole refuge from the insanity at home was Grandma Rose. Going to her house on weekends was like entering a magical realm where I could let my guard down and play like a child again. Unconditional love and the aroma of freshly baked cookies permeated her home. Look at you, skin and bones, Mom would remark as she piled pancakes onto my plate. That woman has you twirling like a fairy tale princess. In contrast to my home life, I was free to let my guard down and giggle uncontrollably at Grandma's house. The one time Emma came to see me, she realized right away that her normal strategies wouldn't work. But I want ice cream before dinner. Stomping her feet, Emma moaned. Young lady, she stated with conviction, in this house we eat our dinner first, and there's no reward for tantrums. After that, Emma never returned. Our grandma's house is dull. She informed our dad that everyone was subject to grandma's house rules, was her point. The turning point arrived the following day. It just so happened that Grandma was visiting when Emma threw a major tantrum overdoing her homework. John, Grandma sternly told Dad, I can't stand how spoilt that kid is. Please, Sandra, do a better job of dealing with this. You have a future dictator on your hands. Anger spread across Sandra's face. Your criticism of my parenting is outrageous. Who are you to claim this? I have every right when I see my granddaughters being treated so differently. She responded, Look at what you're doing to Jenna. Afterwards, I overheard additional yelling from the lower level. Sandra, who was visibly upset, made it clear that she would not up for such contempt. Like clockwork, Dad rallied behind her. Sandra told me the following day that we would not be going to see Grandma Rose again. But it's unfair? No, I said. Life isn't fair, Sandra yelled and became angry. And until you're a college student, you won't be allowed to contact her unless I catch you. The term college became an anchor for me. I dove headfirst into my studies during the following 2 years, eagerly anticipating graduation. Over and over again, I overheard my dad discussing how my mom had left money for my schooling. With that cash, I could finally escape. Graduation day arrived afterwards. Dad and Sandra had a serious conversation with me regarding college while I was still wearing my cap and gown. Without making eye contact, Dad began. That money will instead be put toward Emma's education. They said. Everything froze. What do you mean? Your sister has such promising future prospects, Sandra said with an air of elegance. And you're more suited to hands-on jobs. My whole being exploded. I yelled out loud for the very first time. It's all mine. My mom gave it to me. You lied to her, Dad. You're the one who lied. You ungrateful girl, Dad yelled, his face flushed raw. In light of all that we have done for you, rip it up. Your adult life can begin in a different place tomorrow. I skipped tomorrow, hurriedly packing my belongings into my backpack. I sprinted upstairs, retrieved the concealed photo of Mom, and bolted. Now, when things had reached an all-time low, my friend Jenny's promise that I could stay with her family had come true. I barely made ends meet as a waitress after high school, but that wasn't my ideal career path. Before moving on, I worked double shifts whenever possible at the Silver Spoon, a popular restaurant in the downtown area. At least I wasn't tied down, even though my feet hurt every night and my body reeked of burger grease and French fries. I knew I couldn't force my will on Jenny's parents indefinitely, despite how kind they were to let me live with them for the first several months. That's when I crossed across with Maria, another server at the eatery who happened to be on the hunt for a housemate. The apartment's tiny, I was told, and the neighbors are loud, but it's cheap. Regarding small, she was serious. We lived in a cramped apartment with just enough room for 2 beds and a couch, but it was ours and we were both independent. The two of us managed to make it through the week by trading shifts and splitting the shopping expenditure. Any plans for school? Occasionally, Maria would inquire while we tallied our tips following the closing. All I'd do is shake my head. I would be lucky to have any savings after paying rent, electricity, and groceries. I felt as if my college dreams had gone the moment I stepped foot outside my house. My phone then called at an incongruous hour on a Tuesday afternoon. When I saw the number, I nearly let go of the coffee pot that I was holding. "My darling Jenna, you've been my target in my pursuit of you. Am I doing well in college?" My jaw clenched. "I'm not in college, Grandma." "Explain yourself." That was Sarah's inheritance that your father put aside. The argument, the eviction, and my time spent working as a waitress were all things I felt compelled to tell her. I feared we had lost touch with Grandma because she was so quiet for so long as I sobbed in the restaurant break room at the end. As her rage built, she finally spoke, her voice quivering. "Those miserable, selfish," she pleaded. "Jenna, pay attention. This is your college fund. I will not argue." "No, Grandma, I am unable to allow you to." "You're preventing me from taking any action. I'll get it done. I won't allow them to ruin your future since your mom was like a daughter to me. Do you have any school options in mind?" "I might give the nearby university a shot." I whispered, "They have evening classes." "Very well. Next semester we will enroll you." "Jenna, I think we should keep this between us," she said after pausing. "Neither your father nor that wife are people I want to deal with." My laughter cut through the sobs. "Trust me, Grandma, neither do I." I ended up working as a waiter full-time while still going to school part-time. Beginning at 5 in the morning, I study, attend classes, and then go straight to work until the office closes. After a long day at the restaurant, my feet would be blistered and smelled like fried food, but I would still return home and pick up my books. I was considered insane by Maria. "Girl, when do you sleep?" With a playful remark, "Sleep is for the weak," I gulped down my 3rd cup of coffee. I experienced a sense of advancement that had eluded me since my departure from home. Not only did I feel good about passing each exam and turning in each paper, but Mom did too. I would still receive the education she had hoped for, even if I would not have been able to use her money. Plus, what's great, none of my relatives were aware. For all they knew, they probably thought I was stuck in a lifeless rut serving tables. Permit them to think so. Who cared about my worth anyway? I had had enough of trying to prove it to them. When Emma's remark appeared on Facebook, I was studying for my final in business administration. She was standing next to a shiny red Mercedes, beaming and dressed in fine clothes that would have put me out of pocket every month. My parents surprised me with this wonderful birthday present. Not that you'd have any idea what good automobiles are, would you? Is the burger menu still up? It must be entertaining to see other people enjoying life to the fullest while you're confined to your role as a waitress indefinitely. Next up came a snapshot of her letter of admittance to college. Achieve statehood. My parents are covering all of my expenses, including tuition, housing, and the meal plan. They went so far as to offer me a European spring break trip. You do get complimentary fries with your shift dinner, though, don't you? My eyes darted between her message and my textbook. My 3.9 GPA and impending graduation with honors are details I could have shared with her. I reverted to my study habits after selecting block user. I earned my bachelor's degree in business 3 weeks later. The fact that Grandma was the only one present to see my stage walk was more than enough for me. Afterwards, we went to a different place for dinner. Things began to shift as I returned to my job. I was summoned to the owner's office by Mr. Peterson early one morning. "Jenna, your diligence has been noted. Is the idea of being a shift manager anything that interests you? You have extensive knowledge of the place. The personnel holds you in high regard, and you have the necessary education." That was only the first step. My promotion to floor administrator came 6 months after that. I was able to finally afford to leave the cramped apartment I lived with Maria when my pay quadrupled. I continued to climb as the years went by. I was the one in charge by the time I was 30. From its humble beginnings as a downtown eatery, the Silver Spoon had grown into one of the best restaurants in town. Even if my name appeared in publications aimed at the restaurant sector, my family continued to view me as only a waiter. I recently moved into an apartment in a posh downtown high-rise with windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, offering breathtaking views of the city below. As I sat there with my coffee in hand, seeing the sunrise, I would constantly remind myself of how far I had gone from being that terrified youngster who fled with nothing more than a backpack. Our former neighbor, Mrs. Roberts, sent me a Facebook message on a peaceful Monday morning. Over the years, we remained in touch, since she was one of the few individuals from my past who had treated me with kindness. She helped me hide my mom's photo album from Sandra once, and she often gave me cookies when Sandra was being really mean. "I felt you should know, Jenna, my darling. Emma has some nefarious plans, and she's graduating next week. At the Silver Spoon, she has already made a reservation. She is aware that you are employed there. She can't stop gushing about how she plans to have you serve as her personal waiter. College dropout sister will serve as her celebratory server, she claims. Everyone from her posh circle of acquaintances to a few of our former neighbors have been invited. Her plan to prove to everyone how much of a failure you were has been in the works for some time. Surely you must be aware of this." Leaning back in my plush office chair, I peered through the one-way glass at the restaurant level below. My well-trained team moved between tables like a well-choreographed dance as the lunch rush was just starting. As I accessed our reservation system, a gentle grin gradually crept onto my face. There it was, Emma Wilson's graduation party, with 15 guests, this coming Saturday at 7 o'clock. The best table in the house, price is no object. She had even sent a handwritten note requesting this. I held the keyboard in my hands. I can terminate the agreement. With only a single click, their reservation would vanish. I could arrange for Janet to phone and make up an explanation about a double reservation or a plumbing emergency. But no, one of my ideas was better. On the second ring, Grandma picked up the phone when I dialed her number. She was most likely tending to her beloved flowers in her garden, where she kept her phone close at all times. "You have no idea who's dining at my restaurant," I remarked when she returned my call. She asked, "Who?" with a hint of intrigue. "Emma, please. My father as well. Sandra also. Her graduation is the reason they're calling. It would seem that she had this particular spot in mind to embarrass her waitress sister. I was just warned about it by Mrs. Roberts." Grandma's tone became abrasive. "Remove their booking. Jenna, you don't require that type of negativity in your life. Surely they've caused you enough pain." A grin spread across my face as I beheld the framed Businesswoman of the Year trophy displayed on my wall. "My suggestion is superior. For dinner that night, what time works best for you? Take a seat behind the marble column near the wall of the waterfall. It's the greatest table in the house. Everything will be visible to you, but they will be unable to see you." Grandma chuckled, that deep, naughty laugh that used to portend trouble whenever I was a kid. After a moment of silence, "You sneaky girl, you. I am interested. Will my pearls be appropriate for this event?" "Just right. Carlos can whip up a chocolate souffle that you'll love. That new raspberry sauce he made last time was delicious, and he's been honing his skills." Bringing her camera, Grandma said with a laugh, "This is going to be better than those reality TV shows you used to watch." I summoned my helper, Janet, after we ended the call. "Clear my schedule for next Saturday evening and make sure the staff knows I'll be handling a special table personally." "Yes, Miss Wilson, of course. Is there anything else you require?" "Yes," I said with a smile as I ran my finger along the spine of the certificate I had earned for business management. It was lying on the wall. "Get Miguel to whip up his signature caviar appetizers and our best champagne. It seems like tonight is going to be an unforgettable experience." I couldn't help but think how great this was as I gazed out over my restaurant once more. Little power plays and her attempts to embarrass me were always Emma's favorite things to do. At least I was prepared this time because she was walking straight into my domain. As the sun began to set on Saturday night, the restaurant was as lively as ever. From my workplace, I witnessed the arrival of my sister's party, Emma in an extravagant gown that likely cost more than most people's monthly pay, Sandra sporting her usual heavy-handed makeup, and Dad appearing older than I recalled. A group of well-dressed acquaintances of Emma's encircled them. I caught a glimpse of Grandma at her secret table, acting as if she were perusing the menu as she observed the proceedings. As I walked by, she winked at me subtly. "Excuse me." Throughout the eatery, Emma's booming voice resounded. I asked expressly for Jenna, my sister, to be our server. "Tell me where she is." I brought my tailored suit jacket to a smooth surface and went over to their table. Upon seeing me, Emma's face glowed with a mischievous glee. She addressed the group and said, "Oh my God, this is my sister I was telling you about," as if I were a zoo exhibit. We all looked shocked. And here she is, a waitress even after all this time. I mean, I'm still holding my diploma from state, and she's not even done yet. After Emma started laughing, the whole table joined in. Even Dad couldn't look me in the eyes while he chuckled. Sandra merely sat there, her smug expression bringing back a flood of memories. "Check out her outfits," Emma murmured to her companions on stage. "I guess that's what you can afford on a waitress's salary." As I stood there in my suit by Armani, I let them to make fun of me. I couldn't help but notice the irony. "What can I get for you this evening?" Professionally, I inquired. Emma pretended to peruse the menu. "So I'll go with the lobster thermometer since you specifically requested it." "Hold on a minute." Faking worry, she glanced up. "Is it even possible for you to dine at this establishment? So you're familiar with lobster, right?" Her pals continued to laugh awkwardly, but several were clearly embarrassed. And after supper, Emma added, her voice betraying her disdain, "I would like it if you would wash our dishes by hand. A generous tip is even in my power. Perhaps it's time to treat yourself to some nice clothing." It was as if Grandma were clenching the edge of her table with such force that her knuckles became white. Evidently embarrassed by Emma's actions, a few of the visitors were muttering to each other. Sandra raised her voice to speak, her tone distant. "Really, Jenna, you should be grateful Emma chose your establishment for her celebration, though I must say I'm surprised they hired someone like you at such a nice place." "Actually," I declared with an unfaltering grin, "I will not be able to fulfill your order or clean your dishes this evening." The expression on Emma's face turned threatening. "You won't? What do you mean by that?" "I need to talk to the boss at your company. Right now." "I'll have you fired." "That won't be necessary," I remarked in a casual tone. "The manager is already here." "Well, where are they?" Emma looked around and demanded. "You're looking at her." Absolute quiet descended upon the table. Emma's jaw fumbled with words, like if she were a fish out of water. Sandra appeared as though she had ingested something unpleasant, and Dad's face had turned entirely white. That's impossible," Emma eventually said. "You lied. Oh, you're merely a waitress." Actually, a voice that seemed familiar said, "She's more than simply the manager. Currently, she holds a 30% stake in this eatery." With her shoes clicking on the marble floor, Grandma rose from her concealed table and made her way over. She might have frozen Dad in his tracks with that expression. "While you were busy spoiling one daughter and crushing the other, I put Jenna through college." In her spare time, she attended classes in business management while working as a waitress here. She is the one who deserves all the credit for her achievements. A flushed Emma leaped to her feet. "That's wrong. That's not true. She's nothing but a successful businesswoman who owns part of one of the city's most prestigious restaurants," said Grandma. "Who went out and purchased herself a fancy condo while you're still relying on your dad's wealth. Did you intend to say that?" Dad discovered his voice at last. "Mom, I don't." "You dare, Johnny Wilson." Finally, Grandma lost her cool. "You let that woman to manipulate you into betraying your own daughter. You misappropriated Jenna's college fund, funds bequeathed to her by her mother." "Well, you know what? Okay, I'm going to fix this. My intentions have already changed. My possessions are all going to Jenna. All of the money." Suddenly, Sandra leaped out of her chair. "That is impossible. Your granddaughter Emma is also mine." "Everything has been given to Emma for free her whole life," Grandma said with a chill. "She doesn't need my money, though from what I've seen tonight, she could use some basic human decency." Emma utterly snapped. A flurry of plates and food were splattered when she snatched her wine glass and threw it across the table. "I demand justice. You're all simply envious of me." I named out security in a calm and collected manner. Without delay, a pair of black-suited men materialized. "Please escort these people out." "You can't throw us out." "Sandra," she yelled out, "do you know who we are?" With a "yes, I do," I responded. "You're invading my restaurant and making a nuisance of yourselves. You better get out of here quickly before I report the damage to my property and file charges." A security guard grabbed Emma's arm as she reached for another plate. They were all escorted to the door, and Dad remained motionless, appearing bewildered. "A feeble Jenna." He echoed back, "Dear, could we have a conversation?" My back turned to them, and I strode away. He made a number more attempts over the following months, including phone calls, emails, and even a single in-person visit to the eatery. I instructed security to reject him. The time has passed since then. Now that I've opened 2 additional locations of the Silver Spoon, it's the best restaurant in town. Gran remains steadfast in her pledge regarding the will. Fortunately, she is 75 years old and going strong, taking care of her garden and making Sunday trips to the restaurant for her chocolate souffle. Another communication from Emma came to me last week, some aspect of her desire to make amends and her transformation. When dealing with signals from that time in my life, I did what I normally do. I returned to my work after hitting delete. Sometimes it's best to close a chapter